This episode of the Digital Desperados podcast is brought to you by SaferNet VPN, found online at safernet.com.
Hey, welcome to the Digital Desperados podcast featuring dark tales from the web. Patrick McMurphy's here today to tell us our dark tales, and he's joined by Brad Hawkins, founder and CEO of SaferNet. I'm Jim Brangenberg, and I'll serve as your story guide. This podcast is brought to you by SaferNet. Any more going online can be scary every time you click on a link. You don't know where that link's going to go. Join the mission to stay secure online with SaferNet. Perfect for small to medium-sized businesses and families as well. Our cybersecurity app provides a VPN, internet controls, virus protection, and it can help your work and family life to operate in harmony with 84 web filters keeping distractions away. Hey, get secured now. Sign up at safernet.com. That's safernet.com. Patrick, which dark tale are you telling us about today?
Well, Jim, today we're going to talk about an individual called Hector Xavier Monsegur, aka Sabu. Now, Sabu is one of my favorite go-to guys these days for information about hacking, and you'll see why at the end of the episode. But so Sabu's born in 1983 in Puerto Rico to a very, very young father. His father's only 16 years old. Now, there's no talk of where his mother is. That's kind of unknown information. But he lived with his father, who was 16, and his grandmother, who was 40. So two pretty young people to be a parent and a grandparent, right?
Wow.
So it was a pretty challenging upbringing. His father actually ended up being arrested. He was dealing drugs. And so him and his grandmother moved to the projects in New York City, where he kind of spent most of his childhood. And so Sabu became pretty interested in computers, computing and hacking from a young age. When Sabu was about 14, in the news at the time, there was a Puerto Rican person who was accidentally killed by the Marine Corps. Essentially, he was near a test range, and they were testing bombing campaigns basically, and this individual was killed. And Sabu kind of took that as some kind of attack against the Puerto Rican people, and so he began to hack into various websites protesting what he felt was the U.S. government's mistreatment of Puerto Ricans. So he even managed to face a couple of military websites, and he just left messages. One notable message he left was just a single line, and which said, "Hello, I am Sabu. I am no one special for now," which was kind of telling because he goes on to be someone pretty special in the hacking world.
You know, Patrick, this is really interesting because it's the first time I've heard you tell a story about somebody that was at least starting out with the attitude of justice.
Yeah, and that definitely feeds into Sabu's life. This idea of justice. Now, some may say later it's, he was seeking justice in all the wrong ways, but kind of the tools that Sabu was looking at, he was looking at exploiting vulnerabilities on websites, phishing attacks, which we've talked about a bit, social engineering, and cross-site scripting, which is also known as XSS. And so what cross-site scripting is that it's injecting malicious scripts into web pages, and that may be through like online forums and whatnot, where if you type in a certain string of characters, it might actually breach the form, and then you can go ahead and do whatever you want to the website. So it's pretty nasty stuff.
When you say social engineering, I'm thinking they're doing genetic engineering. What do you mean social engineering?
I wish it was that cool. No, social engineering, it happens regularly even today. It's effectively just talking to people, and by talking to them, getting their password. So, we'll say you befriend someone and you get to know them well, and, you get talking about family, and they're like, oh yeah, so what about your mother's family? And they might drop their mother's maiden name, for example. Boom, that's access to most people's email, because the recovery question for 90% of emails is, what is your mother's maiden name? So social engineering is almost like physical hacking. You're just speaking to people, trying to get their details without actually being at a computer. So it's a level of charisma that's required there, I think.
Well, and I've seen a lot of stuff on Facebook where people are asking, hey, answer these questions. And they're always questions that would be like answers to your passwords or to the questions. Are they doing that stuff on purpose?
Yeah, Facebook is a breeding ground for social engineering at the moment. Back in the early 2000s, the big one was, it's actually hilarious to think about, was that going around chat rooms that you were told if you got your parents' credit card numbers and typed in XXX, then followed by your parents' credit card number, the numbers would be obscured because of the X's. And so, hundreds of people would post these numbers. We would just appear by the actual number trailed by X's at the front. So, it's very easy to catch out people, but Facebook is huge for it. It's a that's a social engineer's dream come true.
All right. So Sabu he's exploiting vulnerabilities on websites. He's doing phishing attacks, and phishing is not with a pole and a hook. He's doing cross-site scripting, which maybe you ought to describe that too as well. What do you mean by that?
So we'll say you have a website, we'll say you have a contact form on a website. And normally, as you would expect, that contact form would take English, but it also takes a programming language called SQL, which really isn't used as an end user, but you can, on certain unsecured forms, you can put in malicious SQL and hijack the form. And by hijacking the form, hijack the website effectively and gain control of that website.
So really what they're doing is trying to get the information that people are entering into the form.
Yeah.
That's what you're saying? Okay.
Exactly. And so while all this is happening, Sabu's still in high school at this point, but he's in high school and he's actually trying to fix his high school computers, and he's walking around with a screwdriver, and it's seen as a perceived threat. And he gets expelled for walking around school with a screwdriver, as you would expect.
Did he ever say why he was walking around school with a screwdriver?
He said he was fixing the school's computers, which he actually was. But, keep the screwdriver in a bag or something, man. Don't walk around, gripping a screwdriver down the hallways, They
take that zero tolerance seriously, yes.
It's understandable, come on.
No, it's not. But
sadly, in 2010, Sabu's grandmother died, and he actually became a foster parent. And he, at this point, had to turn to hacking full-time for income.
Wow. Speaking of hacking, so many apps out there for just grabbing your information. How about would you like an app to help control your internet time? Controlling your phone internet time? I know I'd like to some days just turn Martha's internet off at about 8 o'clock at night so we can have more conversations. But how do you control time on your computer and your tablet? Well, SaferNet has a solution there. Your shield against online threats, simplified cybersecurity for businesses and families. It's all of that and more. Explore having a VPN to protect when you're online, to protect you, to have internet controls like controlling how much time you have on the internet. It's great for your family. It's also probably great to have at work as well. Virus protection, 84 website filters, just making you everywhere you go, a secure online place to be. Get secured now. Get safernet.com, safernet.com. Hey, I just want to know for those things, Patrick, that you're talking about, would SaferNet help us protect against, or maybe Brad, you answer this question. Would SaferNet help us protect against that stuff where a website's been hacked and it's going somewhere it's not supposed to go?
Well, it'll certainly protect you from anybody that's trying to get your information. And that's what's key is that, he's using phishing attacks to be able to get in there and snag your information. If you go in there and click on something that is the bait that they're using, trying to gather that information, it is so fun to be able to realize, oh my gosh, I just clicked on something that is not it. SaferNet won't let me go any further. It just saved me from a nightmare. And I got to tell you, it did me. I was doing a little bit of international travel here last week, and I wasn't paying attention, and I just clicked on an email, and SaferNet popped up and said, you don't want to do that. And so I got to tell you,
I do want to do it.
I am always grateful that I have SaferNet on all my devices. And that was my iPad. That was just, I was just traveling in a car, hitting a button, and sure enough, it said no. So, I am eternally grateful for what it is that we're able to stop. So, Patrick, I want to ask you a question. How did this young kid, obviously he's young, he's in foster families at this point, how did he figure out how to make money on doing phishing attacks or gathering data off of somebody's contact list, off somebody's website? What was he doing to make money? How did he do that?
Well, really, with any kind of phishing attack, especially this thing, Sabu. I mean, Sabu wasn't working for a major hacking corporation; he was working for himself. You're really looking at kind of small-time credit cards, small-time credit cards from phishing and things like that. But Sabu kind of, as we said at the start, he had some sense of justice, and so while Sabu was hacking for profit, this actually eventually turned into hacktivism. Hacktivism, very controversial subject, but it effectively means that you're kind of hacking for justice, where that might be, there could be environmentalist hackers trying to hack some oil website or something like that, or hacking a government website if you disagree with X, Y, and Z. But you walk on very blurred lines with hacktivism. And the main hacktivist group since probably 2006 are called Anonymous. And he joined Anonymous and became a very prominent member. Now, Anonymous doesn't have a leader. That's its point. But its direction is dictated by a collective of individuals, very small number, who have both high technical skill and they have very domineering personalities. And Sabu actually had both of these. So Sabu established himself as one of the main members of Anonymous, within Anonymous, because from the outside, no one knows who's a member. And they actually operate within a cell structure as well. So they're very much clouded in mystery. But from within Anonymous, Sabu led something called LulzSec, which did hacks for the lulz. And now that sentence may not make much sense right now, but what the lulz are, the lulz was kind of this concept devised in the mid 2000s.
I was going to say, for people that, maybe having a struggle with Patrick's Irish accent, lull, LULZ. SEC, LulzSec. There you go.
And so the word lulz itself is a corruption of lol, which is laugh out loud. And so you could probably gather if you did something for the lulz, it means you did it because it was purely out of mischief or you and your friends found it funny. So it's kind of a chaotic way of hacking. It's not really for the money. It's just for saying, hey, I did that. This is funny. We made these guys look like fools. It was for the lulz, basically, is what that means.
Now, is that something that Anonymous works on together, or is it? How does Anonymous play into that situation? Do they just motivate each other? Do they educate each other?
Yeah, they would have orchestrated a lot of attacks like these and carried them out. But I mean, Anonymous was so chaotic that there was people who would say that they're members and they've not talked to anyone else on it. I mean, it was a really chaotic movement. It's still around, but it's not like it used to be anymore. But LulzSec was one of the known movements within it, and they were really high-profile guys. They ended up targeting news corporations, Sony. They even got into the CIA's official website. All they were doing were just defacing websites. They weren't actually stealing much stuff. They were just saying, oh, by the way, this group of teenagers are better at cybersecurity than, your secret agents.
So reassuring.
Oh, very reassuring. Yeah, just some kid with a laptop is,
wow,
better than the CIA. Now, there was, at the time, if you guys can remember Occupy Wall Street, Anonymous were very active during this time, and Sabu was actually added in person. He was met by an anthropologist called Gabrielle Coleman, who wrote about it extensively. And when she was describing Sabu, she said that he was both respected and feared. So it kind of says a lot about the kind of guy he was. He wasn't just some, skinny kid with a laptop. He was, he was quite a presence in real life as well. And so, I mean, like with any group, there's going to be splinters. And there was one splinter from Anonymous called Backtrace Security. And really, Backtrace had grown critical of vigilante activism. When they were asked to explain their motives, they stated that one cannot fight for justice and democracy by using unjust anti-democratic tactics. So they were actually all about ousting members of Anonymous who they felt weren't pursuing justice in the correct way. And eventually they found Sabu, they found his exact details, and they ousted him to the FBI. And so on the 7th of June, 2011, Sabu was arrested by the FBI, and the next day he became an FBI informant. Yeah, so he was. This is where his story really takes off. There's been a lot said about his cooperation since his arrest, for example, one U.S. attorney noted that that the defendant was cooperating like from the get-go. Effectively, he would stay up all night in conversations with co-conspirators, effectively other anonymous members, to try help the government to build cases against them. Now, as for what the FBI had on Sabu, they had him on 12 charges, including hacking and fraud, but he had a potential prison sentence of 24 years. So,
oh, wow.
Several lifetimes. So during his time, he enabled the arrest of a lot of people from Anonymous, LulzSec, Anti-Sec, which is very similar to LulzSec. Notably, there was two UK hackers who we'll cover in a much future episode called James Jeffrey and Ryan Cleary. They were both arrested because of his information. He did attempt to entrap author of ransomware called CryptoCat. However, that failed. But he was actively doing this until March 6, 2012. Basically appearing to oppose the government online, but actually collecting all this information on people he was working with.
But I'm waiting for you to say, hey, and then the Russians came in and they hired him. And so he left the country. Oh, maybe that's coming up. I don't know. That's coming up in the future.
It could.
I don't want to spoil the rest of the story, but if you're an entrepreneur out there, you need to understand that we got to use the internet to do work. We have to use the internet to do work, but you got to do it in a safe way. You need SaferNet by your side. Everywhere you go on the internet, whether it's on your phone, on your tablet, on your laptop, on your desktop, you need SaferNet to protect you. So when you're out there, people aren't getting into where you are, and they're SaferNet's protecting not only your eyes from going places you shouldn't go, but it's protecting your keystrokes from going where you shouldn't go as well. Protect your business environment from cyber threats. Go to safernet.com. That's safernet.com. You'll find that this is extraordinarily reasonably priced and very, very powerful. It's got an incredible console for managing your entire organization. Go to safernet.com. All right, Patrick, finish this up. What happened? As you laid it up pretty good for us as of March 6th. What was that?
Sorry, I think I just lost you there for a second, Jim.
No problem. But you got the March 6th. You said up to then he appeared to be working for the government.
Yeah, and so by March 6th, the FBI had arrested kind of the 5 main hackers within Anonymous. And Anonymous at this point realized it was Sabu that was, snitching on them.
Now, were these the same guys that ended up turning them into the FBI?
It was Backtrace that turned them into the FBI. Backtrace were a splinter group from Anonymous.
So it was a little bit of revenge as well as keeping himself out of jail.
Oh yeah, completely. Yeah. But I mean, so when Anonymous found out that it was Sabu who was betraying them, I mean, their official Twitter account tweeted that Anonymous is a Hydra, cut off one head, and we grow 2 back. Now, that's not strictly true, as it turned out, because since Sabu's work with the FBI, Anonymous haven't been half the machine they used to be. But as it turned out, when they looked over all of Sabu's work, he'd actually prevented 300 cyber attacks, including planned attacks on NASA, the US military, and a number of media companies. He only did 7 months in prison, the rest of his time served, and of course, his work with the FBI. So these days, he's a white hat hacker. He's actually a director for a penetration testing company. So if you're unsure about your cybersecurity, you give Sabu's company a call and he hacks you and tells you how good your security is. And really these days, he's involved in a lot of advocating for cybersecurity awareness and education. Also heavily emphasized the importance of ethical behavior in the digital domain and within hacking. He still works with
Just wait a minute. Okay, I don't know. That seems hard to believe. I don't know. Brad, are you believing that?
Well, the stories that we've heard, there's several guys that have ended up doing that. And then on the dark side, behind the curtain, in the background, they're up to their old tricks. I'm an eternal optimist. I would love to hear a great story about somebody that said, you know what, I turned myself around and I started making some better changes. And now I'm operating 100% as a white hat hacker. I would love to hear that. And actually, truthfully, I know a couple of them. I don't know what they do in the evenings, but I know a couple of them that are white hat hackers from the dark side. So I certainly hope so. But there's always that element of pay close attention.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of these guys we come across, they're double agents, they're triple agents, quadruple agents. It's kind of it's hard to tell a lot of the time. As you said, Brad, what do they do at night when they go home?
Yeah, I honestly, I would absolutely love to hear a story about something like that says, you know what, now they're 100% on the clean side, and all they do is show people what they need to do to keep themselves safe.
And I mean, I fully believe that's Sabu. I mean, so that's really all he's doing these days. He does a lot of conferences also. So his latest was called Exposure 2023. That was just 2 months ago. I watched that. It's definitely worth the watch. He's the kind of guest of honor on it. But one of the things he talks about at length this year was that how modern financial cybercrime is so easy. The dumbest person could carry out a financial cybercrime heist. He says because due to the advent of how like prevalent cryptocurrency is, he said it's so easy. And he kind of lamented the fact, that if he was back in his day, if it was that easy, he probably would be a millionaire right now. But
Patrick, I believe that totally. I mean, I talk to people all the time about the fact that, oh yeah, cyber crimes are for the big companies. People they're never going to hack a little person like me that's kind of meaningless or whatever the case is. They don't care about anything small like my small company or my life. All they care about is the big company, and they do the dumbest things. I listen to some of their stories and I'm like, you've got to be kidding me. You don't run your cybersecurity all the time. You don't have it on all the time. I mean, there's those kind of things that I look at saying, some people just deserve to be hacked because they're foolish in their thinking.
That was a little harsh, but you heard it here. The internet and everything digital can have a dark side and many dark players. It's why you need SaferNet by your side. VPN, antivirus, 84 web filters, and so much more. Thanks to SaferNet for supporting our efforts to bring you these stories and giving them the exposure that they need, even if we remain a little skeptical. Please, for your own security and safety of those you love and those you work with, check out safernet.com and get secure today. Till the next time, click only on the attachments you trust from those you trust, and delete the rest, or you may become the next victim of a digital desperado.
This episode of the Digital Desperados podcast is brought to you by SaferNet VPN, found online at safernet.com. If it's easy to use, you will use it. What if you had one place to monitor all the internet activity of everyone in your family? Attention, I Work For Him listeners. Safeguard your business and family with SaferNet VPN. We deliver top-notch cybersecurity with a user-friendly approach, protect sensitive data with a virtual private network, and shield loved ones from harmful content with 84 internet filters. Choose SaferNet VPN for peace of mind. Get secured now. Sign up at safernet.com. That's safernet.com.